Hello, welcome to the Flute 360 podcast, where we incorporate a panoramic view of flute-related topics. I am your host, Heidi K. Begay, and this is episode 171, an interview with Austin Pancner. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Flute 360 podcast episode. We are thrilled that you have tuned in today. As a friendly note, this conversation is also being recorded via video. So I know that this is a new element for 360 listeners, but if you want to see Coach Austin and I in action, you can head over to Heidi K. Begay's YouTube channel and you will be able to see the video. So without further ado, I would love to introduce very briefly my friend and colleague, Austin Pancner. He is today's wonderful guest, and we will be talking about health and wellness. Welcome to the show, Austin.
Hi, Heidi. Pleasure to be here. Can't wait to see where this conversation takes us.
Yeah, I cannot wait. And for those of you who may not know, Austin and I, for the past 4 or 5 months, maybe not that long, we have been in a group mastermind together. And so we were just talking pre-show of how special this conversation is going to be, because it's not just with an expert, with somebody who, I have been admiring from afar. I think your work, Austin, is fantastic within the health and wellness industry. But then he's come into my inner circle and we have gotten to know each other and work with each other. And we have seen the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it within masterminds. And I'm so appreciative of your friendship and of your support within my life.
Oh, Heidi, such kind words. Thank you. That warms my heart. And I don't know how long the mastermind has been. It's been a crazy ride. But definitely a lot of ups and downs. And it's just been a real pleasure to actually get to know you over the past 4 or 5 months, as well as everybody else who's listening who is in that mastermind as well. It's not just us two. But yeah, it's an honor to be on here. I was actually reflecting and telling my fiance earlier, you're one of the first podcast hosts that I reached out to when I started launching the Functional Musician, and that was about a year ago. So it is coming full circle, and it's I would have never envisioned in a million years that you and I would be so close and we'd be having these really deep conversations almost on a bi-weekly basis. So really the pleasure is all mine, and it's really an honor to be here.
Oh, you're so kind. You brought me all the way back. I totally forgot. You're right. We reached out in through LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm being put on the spot now. I remember now. You were so kind and you said, "Hey, I want to get to know you," and blah, blah, blah. And I said, "Yes, I want you on the show. I don't know when." And literally it took a year. So my apologies.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Everything happens for a reason. And hey, my whole entire reaching out wasn't to get on the podcast, was to get to know you. And that actually happened first. So I think that's actually a really beautiful thing.
I love it. So without further ado, let's jump right into health and wellness. But before we do, can you share with the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, totally. So I'm a bass trombonist, an educator, and a musician health and wellness coach. And I run the Functional Musician, where I help musicians live and perform without pain. And I kind of stumbled on this venture back in my grad school days when I entered an injury cycle that lasted about 3 years. And I tried a whole bunch of different things. And a lot of things were very, very helpful, but I kept reverting back to certain habits and certain patterns that would debilitate me further and injure me further. And it was really, really hard to get out of. And I was in this really, really, really dark place, Heidi, really dark place where, I convinced myself I no longer loved music. I wouldn't listen to music. I wouldn't listen to anything. And I was really numbing myself to a lot of the pain, emotional pain and physical pain that I was experiencing. And it got to the point where I was like, all right, well, I just had my first doctoral recital. And the week leading up to that, all of these injuries kind of culminated into a big event that was very, very scary. I didn't want to do the recital, but I ended up doing it anyway. And it did not go well. It was very, very embarrassing. And from the first 30 seconds of that recital, I was just like, oh no, something's wrong. And it just went downhill from there. So it was a big mental battle for me. And after that, I was just like, you know, I spent the last 10 years in school pursuing this. I think I'm done. So I ended up, I didn't want to quit school because I did have like some scholarships and, I had certain people in my life that were supporting me through this process as well. So I just didn't want to quit out of the blue. So what I did was I had some money saved up and I did my research and I ended up getting certified from the National Academy of Sports Medicine and personal training and corrective exercise. And along the way too, precision nutrition as well. And I just started applying the knowledge to myself to really learn it so I could teach it to other people. Cause I was a regular member at the gym and I would see personal trainers who would try to teach things. And it's like there was definitely a disconnect. And I still think there's a disconnect with a lot of personal trainers, in my opinion, but that's a conversation for another time. But basically, like within the span of 6 months, as I was applying these concepts, things started making a lot more sense. Especially looking at like the National Academy of Sports Medicine has something called the injury cycle. And as I was reading it, I was in the library and I remember just like I had my headphones in, music blasting, and I just like screamed. Like not screamed, but I was just like, holy crap, like this all makes sense. I was
Yeah.
just like, oh my gosh, it blew my mind. And so I just started out like making improvements, and within 6 months, I was actually able to get back to performing. And when I was able to get back to performing, I remember the first recital I had. After that, and maybe it wasn't the best recital I've ever done because obviously going through an injury for 3 years really does debilitate both your mental and physical well-being, and definitely inhibits you from improving as quickly as someone who your peers that aren't necessarily going through the mental and physical traumas that you are. And it was just amazing. All of that love, all of that passion, all of that fulfillment, all of that joy came back. And I was like, I love music. I've always loved music. It was just really clouded by all of the darkness that I was experiencing. And Indiana University has something called the OECD office, the Office of Entrepreneurial Career and Development. And I went to them actually during my injury, and I was like, just to talk to someone because I didn't, like when I was about to quit, because I was like, I just didn't know what to do anymore. And they actually helped me cultivate this idea of what the functional musician is today. And so what happened was right before COVID, I won the innovation competition, and that's a yearly pitch competition that the OECD office runs, and you get a stipend and like a fund to launch your business. So I ended up winning that. I did a couple of other pitch competitions where I got some funding as well, and those all went into more certifications, all went into more knowledge and more accreditation, and then COVID hit, and then I was like, all right, like I can't wait until I'm done with school. It's either now or never, and I just kind of went with it. And fast forward a year. I mean, I had my 1 year anniversary with the functional musician 2 weeks ago, and it's just been an incredible journey, and I'm just so grateful that I'm actually able to help people, and I'm actually able to be a resource for people because it's like I tried all those different things, and the thing that was lacking for me was something that made sense. Not sitting up straight, not stretching, not doing this. I wanted to know why something was happening and connect it to a bigger picture. And looking back, it's kind of funny because it's like I've been in education all my life, and what I was lacking was education, I guess, for myself that I needed. But hey, that comes with maturity as well, and it's just like it comes full circle. And that's just a little bit about how things have got started. If you're interested in learning more about like the actual event where I did get injured, I do have a blog post where I share a little bit more in-depth story about how I was in jazz band and how that happened, and a little bit more detail here and there. But that's the SparkNote version, and again, it's just really really cool to be able to do this and to be able to help other people, because that's really what it's all about.
Oh my goodness, Austin. I'm over here. There's like a million goosebumps. And first, as somebody who can relate to having an injury and looking at the instrument and being in that cloudy, dark space, I resonate with everything you said. And secondly, I'm so glad that you pushed through to find those resources to help yourself and be that guinea pig, for yourself. And then to then offer that information to the community. Oh my goodness, like that's amazing. And I think one of the gold nuggets that I'm hearing in all of this is that sometimes our message comes out of our mess, you know?
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
that yeah, kudos to you for pushing through that. And the other huge, like, oh my goodness moment is the fact that when you were reading the injury cycle that you had mentioned earlier, and you had this oh my gosh moment, that's how I was with food and the food that we
Hmm.
eat. And I've never said this before, but because you're a friend and all my listeners are friends, I don't mind being extremely vulnerable. I have suffered with endometriosis for some time and I was not eating well. Like in the first couple years of being a self-employed musician, I was eating junk and I was in a lot of pain, a lot of
Hmm.
pain. And I remember having that oh crap moment at Barnes and Noble. I was reading a book about the anti-inflammatory diet, eating fruits and veggies. What? Eating soup?
What?
What? Mind blown, right? Superfoods and drinking water and not eating fast food and just hearing of how all of these additives and chemicals that are sometimes added to our foods can inflame us. And I went home that night, threw out everything from my pantry, and I was mad. I was I was mad because I don't know, I just felt like I was lied to. Not that it was anybody's responsibility, it's my body and the foods that I put into myself is my own responsibility,
Right.
but I was upset. And then I just went to Sprouts, the local, market, and I just started buying organic foods and really watching what I ate. And within months, my pelvic pain went from 15 out of 10 down to like 5 out of 10. It was dramatic.
Amazing.
It was amazing. And so, anyways, that's not to divert the conversation, but it is to just resonate and just to piggyback off of what you said of having that aha moment. And if you haven't had that, it doesn't have that same, I don't know, feeling within you. And when you said it, I was just like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. Somebody's been there too. So I just wanted to piggyback off of that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being so vulnerable and sharing that with, me and your listeners. I mean, that's what a story. And that's just such a great lesson and a great reminder that the food we put into our body, we can control that. And it does matter. It has a dramatic effect on our mental and our physical health. And like for me, like I can't eat fried foods or else like I get really bad acid reflux and some other things that happen in the body as well. And it's just something that I've had to learn the hard way as well. And granted, I wasn't in pain, but as we start eating healthier foods, and actually this might be a good question just to ask you, Heidi. It's like, as you transitioned from this lifestyle of eating fast food, not eating healthy, that musician almost like mindset and habit cycle we get into from school. How did you feel like 6 months after you started eating all of these healthy, nutritious foods?
Yeah, and it wasn't just, the pelvic pain that reduced, but it was also the fact that I could sleep better. I had more energy. I was happier. I didn't have as much anxiety. I could think clearer. And it was just this holistic thing that was happening. And I was so grateful to have a mentor and a dear friend of mine, Kristen Caliendo, out in California. I would call her in the parking lots between lessons, and I would just be crying. I'm like, I can't
Hmm.
sleep at night. I'm in so much pain. Just put a fork in me. I'm done. And she was like, Heidi, I love you, but I'm going to be real with you. You are not eating well. And from there, that aha moment, that light bulb, and that seed was planted. And then I started looking for the resources like and then it just came full circle. And when I had that moment in Barnes and Noble where I was just like, oh, shoot, duh. I mean, come on. The earth gives us, food to better our bodies and our minds. And sometimes we forget that. And, but, anyways, yes, all of those benefits stemmed from changing my diet.
Yeah. Oh, beautifully said. That
Yeah.
is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Cool. So I think that segues beautifully back into body health and fitness, and specifically in your area of being a health coach. So you are ABD right now at the University of Indiana, correct?
Almost
Almost
ABD. I'll
ABD.
be,
Okay,
yes, hopefully in October. I have a final oral exam and then I'll be ABD.
that's amazing. Yeah. So cool. So you've talked about like your journey and how
Hmm.
you ventured down this path of health and well-being. We will definitely post, if it's okay with you, the link to the blog that you just mentioned in the show notes
Okay, yeah,
below.
of course.
Okay, cool. So you've been studying about the body and everything, and throughout your studies, what's the one gold nugget that you wished more musicians knew about their bodies?
Mm. That's a really great question. I don't know if I can give one single nugget.
Okay.
So I think I'll give a couple because they all kind of blend into each other. But
Okay.
something that really resonates with me is the more I learn about the body and the mind, is the more preventative care, the more musicians need to prioritize preventative care versus rehabilitative care. And oftentimes I see so many musicians who are in pain and then they're not in pain. Maybe the pain only happens 1 week or 1 week out of the month, or maybe it happens a couple of times a month. But if that happens every single month, something is not going right. It is not natural to feel that way. And oftentimes we'll wait until our entire body breaks down or shuts down or stops working to go and get help. And I'm going to make an analogy. Your body is, a lot like a car. And with preventative care with your car maintenance, you don't wait until you're completely out of oil to go get an oil change. Like your engine will die. It'll completely ruin the longevity of your vehicle. And it's going to do some funky things along the way and affect other parts in the car if there's not oil in the machine. And our body is the same way. Our mind is the same way. And when we wait until our body breaks down or wait until there's something wrong,
Mm,
um, oftentimes you're too late. And it takes so much more effort. It takes so much more time. It takes so much more financial resources, from doctor visits, MRIs, x-rays, possibly surgery, depending on your situation, maybe regular PT or chiropractic for a great while. I visited a chiropractor for 2.5 years at $60 a session weekly. Just like calculating, that's 150 sessions times 60, like, or wait, yeah, 150 times 60 roughly. Like, that's a lot of money, especially for someone going through grad school. So it's like, I would encourage everybody, because preventative care is a lifelong journey, to go do something today. Go do something right after this podcast and just start learning, because there is so much great information out there. There's also a lot of conflicting information, and can be hard to, bounce between the two and really figure out what works. But, failure is a great tool for learning, and you can be your own guinea pig. And I think people often forget that, our health is our responsibility. It's not someone else's. And when we go to someone and we're like, hey, fix me, I'm broken, that takes the responsibility off you and puts it on them, but it's not their responsibility to fix you. That's really on yourself to show up for yourself and start looking for those resources and start really asking these questions like, where do I want my life to go? Am I happy with, how my body and my mind is feeling? Like, what do I want to do with my career? And if you can answer those questions, you can start to formulate a better vision of where you want your health and wellness to be and what it needs to be in order to support you. And I just encourage everybody to just go do something today, because we're like in a world of information gatherers where there's so much
mm,
information. Like, there's never been a time in history where there's been so much free information available right at our fingertips. Like, our phones are literally supercomputers. And the thing about making any change, developing a skill, and improving your health, action needs to be a part of the equation. You can have
wow.
all the information in the world, and if you never do anything about it, it's just information. But you need that
Yeah.
action and implementation in order to help you, in order to develop any type of skill, whether it's music or whether it's health and wellness. And
Mm,
um, so that would just be one thought. And sorry, I kind of went down a little rabbit hole there. But my other thing too, Heidi, would be that the body is always changing. It's always
mhm,
adapting to its environment. And whether you're in a car, whether you're in a plane, whether you're in rehearsal, whether you're slunched over, whether you're watching Netflix, whether you're walking, the
mm,
you know the body is always changing and adapting. So with that said, when we think about being injured, we often think about, we're broken, we need surgery, oh, we're going to be in pain for forever. But if we just have this basic principle of the body is always adapting, what if we set the body and the mind up in an environment that supported a change in a positive direction
okay.
towards healthier movement that maybe wasn't painful, towards restoring the functionality of certain systems in your body, such as your shoulder, your scapula, and your arm, so you are no longer experiencing wrist pain.
Hmm.
And this is something I'm constantly asking myself, is like, how can we adapt your body to how can we set up your environment to adapt your body towards a positive change, a change that would help you and your um, sensitivity to pain start to decrease?
Hmm.
How can we adapt the environment in a way that promotes a certain physical change that you want to make, whether it's, I want to gain 20 pounds of muscle, or I actually do want to lose some weight. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to lose weight or wanting to gain weight. They're both viable, and everybody has their own reasons and motivations. But just knowing that the body can always change puts the power on us, and we
Hmm.
can now start, if we develop the tools and we have the right knowledge and the resources and systems in place, we can start to actually change our mind and our body to a way where we feel good about it and we feel
Hmm.
comfortable, and we just feel really really happy and really good and just energized and fulfilled with ourselves. And I think that's a really, really important thing, and something that I definitely
Hmm.
neglected in my injury cycle, is like, you don't know how good you can feel if
Hmm.
you approach your life in a holistic way.
I love that. Oh my goodness. So you have more power than you realize you do.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And this like begs the question too. This could be a whole can of worms we may not
Yeah.
want to go down, but something that I've been really questioning lately is like, pain has always been looked at as a medical issue.
Okay.
And as musicians, where there's so many contrasting studies, but there are a lot of studies that show anywhere from 63 to, I think, is about 92 or 93% of musicians will experience an injury in their lifetime. It's like, where is this line between pain is something that we can actually control and we can manage and we can prevent, and where does that pain fall on the lines of needing to go to a medical service provider or a medical specialist? And that's not a question I can answer right now, but it just begs
Hmm.
to differ, is like, we do have power over our own body and what we do. And I think that power is a lot more, it can be, it's an underutilized tool at our disposal. And I think it's a very powerful and effective tool that we need to start questioning and just starting to plant that seed. And I think that's a really important link that's missing in just health and wellness in general in the United States right now.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I am not about to make this all about my journey through endometriosis at all. But again, I'm bringing it back full circle. I was not just only upset with the system and feeling like I wasn't given the right information, but I was kind of mad at myself too, because I realized that knowledge is power. And I had a lot to say in my own health and well being. And I'm the main person of my own health and well being, right? But the thing that you said was we do have lots of power. And it is so true because all these doctors that I went to, they said, "Oh, here's the medicine. Slap on a Band-Aid. Let's just take out your organs. Let's do
Yeah.
surgery." I'm like, "I'm 24 years old. You're not taking out organs." And so I just put my foot down and I said, "I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to give myself the resources. I'm going to do this." And it was a mixture of sleeping well and eating well and exercise and taking back that control, and I was able to move the needle forward for myself in a very powerful, strong way without any help. Now, I'm not going around my big disclaimer here is like, of course, like I'm not a medical doctor, but I took the reins. I said, this is enough. I need to figure out the answers because who was down my path in that moment in that season, those doctors were not advocating for me. They were not giving me resources. So that comes all back to what you were saying, Austin. You have more power than you realize. And, you know, if people aren't being, that resource for you, do it for yourself and then get the right people like Austin. Get people in your life to, help you and train you the right way.
Yeah. And I think that's, oh, Heidi, I love everything you just said. And, this just highlights, like, back to accountability. It just highlights accountability. And if someone in your life is not supporting you, if someone in your life, like a medical provider, is not giving you what you know deep down in your gut that you need, the awesome thing about that is you don't have to go back. You can search for other people. You can go out and be the resource for yourself. And oftentimes, like that is going to teach you more about yourself too. And it's going to be more of a spiritual journey than just, calling someone up and expecting them to help fix that problem for you. So I completely resonate and agree with what you said.
Hmm. Very
Yeah.
cool. I love it. I love all the parallels and the connections here. It's amazing. So, if there is, since we are talking about musicians who may be listening to this right now and they are in pain, what is your advice to them so that way they can start implementing change within, their lives?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really great question, and I would like to answer that question with some questions. I think it's really important if you are going through pain,
Mm,
it's to get help. I think that's the number one important thing. And number two is like actually number one would be please don't ignore it. Like please don't ignore it. We have a way of numbing ourselves to the pain, whether that's or desensitizing or numbing ourselves to the pain, whether that is alcohol, medicine,
mm,
drugs, illicit drugs, or maybe something like what you said, highly like sleep, hydration, nutrition. Those are all ways to help with that. But I think something that's really important is that ignoring it isn't going to make it go away. It's
mm,
not.
mm,
So, with that said, really dedicating yourself to your health and your change. And oftentimes when we're like in pain, like a lot of musicians can fall into this trap of like, oh, it's just part of my daily life. It's part of my life that I just have to accept. And that's
mm,
simply not true. And what's really going on is we have some mindset limiting belief stuff happening.
hmm,
And we really need to look at that and start to question, is my chronic pain actually supposed to be happening? Does it have to be like this for the rest of my life? And I don't think it does because, to quote Henry Ford here, like whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're probably right. And it's really a
mm,
self fulfilling prophecy in that time. So if you truly want to get past this pain, number one, you got to believe you can't ignore it. And asking for help can improve your situation so much. Is the first thing that you try going to completely get you out of your injury and recover you? Probably not, but
mm,
it's going to help. It's going to improve. It's going to educate you, and it's going to teach you a lot of things that could either work or maybe some more information on. Okay, maybe that wasn't the right decision to do. 6 days of strength training when I had a shoulder injury, and now I injured my shoulder even more
mm,
as just like a really extreme example. But just by asking for help and really dedicating yourself to the process, even if someone else isn't able to help you, that assures that you're not going to quit if you hit a roadblock or if you take a couple of steps back. And oftentimes during this process too, it can be such a confusing and overwhelming and uncomfortable process because oftentimes you do have to take a couple of steps back to take more steps forward.
hmm.
So yeah, just some food for thought. And also it's like, whenever we're making some type of transformative change, and what I do with my clients is we work on their lifestyle habits, we work on developing a movement routine as well as other somatic works for the body to help go through a process that's been very consistent with helping people overcome that pain and sustainably keep it away. But when we're making that change, it is difficult. It's super, super difficult because we're creatures of habit and we'll always have those moments where we're like, oh, Heidi, I just don't want to do a podcast today. Or, oh, I really don't want to play trombone. Or it's like, oh, I have pain in my shoulder. And it's like, oh, I really don't want to do some shoulder movements right now. And I really just don't want to work on developing my body awareness a little bit more. And in those moments, it's so, so important. Again, going back to dedicating yourself to yourself, finding ways to show up for yourself during those difficult times is going to be really, really key because we all have difficult days. And we're
Okay.
always going to have those times where we revert back. And if you can catch yourself and also recognize, like, oh, okay, I reverted back to my old habits, like, let's get back on track, as opposed to being really, really hard on yourself. Again, going back to that mindset, that's something that can be also really, really helpful, as you go through this process that's going to feel really, really uncomfortable.
Okay. So as you're making new goals and creating new habits, what is like one tactic or one gold nugget in order to make something new feel like a scheduled habit. Am I saying that
Ooh.
correctly?
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. So how can we ingrain a new habit to where it's natural instead of like having to think about it kind of thing?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of tools you can do. I love tracking. Tracking. I have like a weekly checklist that myself and my clients use just so we can be truly honest with ourselves if we do a habit and if we're showing up for ourselves. Because oftentimes, like the mind will make up stories in the absence of data. And if I asked, like Heidi, like if I was like, all right, we need to work on your hydration. How was your hydration the past week and you haven't tracked it? You'd be like, oh, yeah, it was good. I think I got like 6 cups a day. It's like, well, did you? It might have been 8, it might have been 4, it might have been 6, it might have been 2. Like we don't know because the data is not there. So
Okay.
and it could also encourage you to have that check mark and be like, wow, this is the 7th day in a row where I've done that habit. That's really, really cool. Like I'm motivated to do it again today. And oftentimes, like with the new habits, like you can feel momentum happening the more you show up for yourself and the more you do it. It'll happen around like day 3 or 4. You'll start feeling like you want to do it every day. But
Okay.
then something that's really important when we're making a change is the awareness of reverting back to a habit. I think that's actually probably the most important thing because if you're not aware you're reverting back, you
Uh,
won't have an awareness of where you're going. It would be like basically like you're swimming out to a buoy in the ocean and your head's completely down and you don't look up until you think you're at it and then you realize, oh no, I strayed like 100 yards. It's that way. I gotta divert. So with that said, what we can do, catching yourself, like if you have a rough day and then getting back on track the next day, because that second day is so important because that second day you start to build a habit. You
I
start to build a
see.
habit of not doing that habit. And a lot of people who are going into exercising for the first time in a while, or if they take a couple of days off, it will be so much harder for them to find the motivation to actually go to the gym as opposed to just keeping up that motivation. And that's just like a little mental trick. And just to throw out some like numbers out there, because I know you're a numbers person and so am I. I think it's 21 days to form a habit, 66 days to form new. Wait, sorry. Yeah, 21 days to form a habit, 66 days to form new neural pathways in the brain, and 90 days to create momentum. So it's like
Wow.
just keeping that in mind. Like it does take a while for habits to be embedded into your subconscious, but by tracking it, by getting in the flow and catching yourself on those off days and making sure you get back on track the next day, that's going to help you stay consistent and help you show up a little bit more so you can actually embed that change and ingrain it.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I was going to throw off, I didn't know the 66 or the 90-day figure, but I was going to say, I think it takes 21 days to create a new habit. Yeah. It takes time, but really not
Mm-hmm.
that much time if you really look at
3 weeks.
it. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing what your mind and body can do. So if you do get off and you recognize, like, oh, okay, I did take 2 steps back, you can pick up where you left off.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So it's not like an all or nothing thing, like, oh, well, shoot, on day 5, and then, right? So then you can
Yeah.
just pick up where you left off, and you might have hit a little bump in the road, but keep moving forward.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's throw out any forms of self perfectionism just out the window. And
Okay.
also recognize if you resonated with what Heidi just said, there may be some deeper things of perfectionism that you might want to dig into yourself. Because
Okay.
I think if we can't approach our health and wellness from a perfectionistic standpoint, or else we are going to fall off so hard and so fast and so often. But just recognizing failure is essential for growth. Like you're going to have those setbacks, and you're the only way to literally not succeed is to not try and not
Mm,
show up for yourself. And even on
okay.
those rough days where you don't do anything but you show up for yourself the next day, like that's a huge win. Like that's
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely worth thinking about.
I love it. Kind of like Nicole in the mastermind saying, I would much rather have you have a messy win than a perfect failure.
Yeah, exactly. Messy action for the win. You can always learn after you do something. You can always adjust. It's not the end of the world. You can always learn something from those things.
I love
Yeah.
it. So, since you are a health and wellness coach, I think it is appropriate to perhaps ask if you are comfortable sharing with us any sort of warm up or exercise that us musicians can implement within our daily lives?
Sure. So I think one of the most important things that actually the musician world does really, really well with is the idea of organizing the body. The body needs to be organized in a really, really efficient way, starting
Okay.
with the spine. When we think about the spine being the epicenter of your body, the hips connect to the spine, the legs connect to the hips. Everything goes to this epicenter, and if the spine gets hurt, like that body is shutting down. If you've ever thrown out your lower back, like that was a great 2 weeks of Netflix binging or Lord of the Rings binging or whatever your poison of choice is. But it's like organizing the body is just a great first step to check in with. So what I'm going to do is I'll guide you through just a quick exercise I call the organizational exercise that I teach all of my clients and I do on a regular basis as well. So when we're doing this, the important thing to realize is that everybody's different, and with organization, like if you've never done this before too, like a way of organizing your body, like this is a skill that does need to be developed. Like your body is going to revert back when you stop thinking about the organization. So this is something I do before my mobility routines, before I play trombone, even when I'm sitting, just to check in and see how things are going. So the whole idea is that we're standing feet shoulder width apart, and what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze our glutes. So we squeeze our glutes, and then what we're going to do is we're going to rotate our feet into the ground. So our feet are still going to be pointing straight away, but you should feel an entire activation in your lower body. You should feel your feet generating this almost like torque-like, and you should feel torque-like energy, and then you should feel your glutes squeezed. Next thing you want to do is take a deep diaphragmatic breath. So your stomach's going to go out a little bit. You're going to exhale, and the stomach is going to come inward. And this is the idea of bracing. And what we want to do is we just want to maintain this bracing. And it's not a lot of effort. It's like a 2 out of 10. It can be very, very light. So we should have braced abs. We should be squeezing our glutes and rotating our feet into the ground. Next thing we want to do is check our shoulder position. And if you look at your thumbs, we want our thumbs to be pointing straight away. If they're pointing towards each other, you have a degree of internal rotation in your shoulders. So we just want to reset our shoulder position and put them in a more neutral organized sequence. So we're going to lift our hands up. We're going to open them, palms up to the ceiling, and we're going to slowly go back until we feel a pull. We're not pinching our shoulder blades together. We're stopping right before that, and then we'll relax our hands at the sides. And if you do it right, your thumb should now be pointing straight away. If this is the first time you do it and your thumbs aren't pointing straight away, just go ahead and give that exercise another try so you can reposition those shoulders. And then the last thing we want to do is we just want to guide our head downward. It's called flexion, and guide our head upward into extension all the way up. And then you would just want to slowly guide your head down, and it's going to find the most balanced position naturally. And then, of course, we don't want to be squeezing our glutes and twisting our feet the entire time. So you can actually relax that now, but keep your abs just a little bit braced and check again with your thumb position. If you need to adjust those, go ahead and do so. But this is something where this is an organizational sequence that lines up the feet, the knees, the hips, the abs, the shoulders, the head. 6 different checkpoints that we want to be aligned. And it's important to recognize that throughout our daily life, our tendency to round forward and slump is super, super heightened just because we live in a world where we're constantly looking down and constantly just at the computer or constantly in this rounded shoulder position. And what's really, really cool for those of you that have been watching the Olympics, this is the same, this is a very similar organization that you see top tier athletes doing at the Olympics. They will literally do this before they pole vault, before
Wow.
they throw a hammer, before they'll do any type of thing. If they're at the highest level, they are very, very highly aware of how to organize their body and the
Huh.
importance of organizing the body before doing any type of athletic events. And I'm a huge believer in why I got into the sports science realm of things and not body mapping or Alexander technique or Feldenkrais, is because I believe that if Olympic athletes can do those physical feats without pain, those same concepts are going to apply to us at a much, much smaller load. So I think there's a lot of similarities here and a lot of opportunity for learning from the sports science realm that's literally 40, 50, 60 years ahead of musician health and wellness in terms of research. So
Wow.
again, another another can of worms, another can of worms. But I think it's just crazy to think about, like, if athletes who exercise 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day can do these kind of things, why can't we? Why can't
Yeah.
musicians do the same thing?
Yeah. And we should be doing the same thing.
Oh, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. So I think that's, of course, like organization, like pain is usually a lagging indicator, means it happens after the fact. It's like evidence, it's information about what happened, not
Mm.
what is happening. Although that's like pain can be happening also in real time as well, depending on what the situation is. But pain is super, super complicated. So if you are in pain, this organizational sequence is not going to help you get out of pain, but just recognizing that the body is always adapting and we need the body to be in an organized and functional position at various parts of our life can really just help start bringing awareness to how you hold yourself, how you move throughout the day, and
Hmm.
how your posture um, is being supported. Wait, how your life is being supported by your posture, from when you wake up, from when you go to bed.
I love it. So I'm so excited to hear about this nugget of organizing the body. And I resonate so much with this. And just making a connection for those of you who have not listened to episode 169, I would do that because Spencer was talking about similar nuggets to what Austin just said. And he was talking specifically about the spine. So I just love making those connections and how all the dots are just like doing this in my brain.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to that episode too.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for going through that exercise, Austin.
Yeah, I hope it was helpful. And if anybody has any questions, like, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Instagram at the Functional Musician, or if you're my Facebook friend, to like totally just shoot me a message. I'm, always happy to be a resource for people. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing how rounded our shoulders can get if we're not paying attention. So if you're
Okay.
someone and your thumbs are pointing towards each other, give that organizational sequence a try and
Okay.
see if you notice a difference in how that feels.
That's amazing. Yeah. So for your website, I'm going to go ahead and place your website's link in the show notes below. And Austin will not say this, but I'm going to say it for him because he is a friend and he's so humble. But he will respond to your IG messages and he is so easy to reach. He is completely engaged within the community. I know his passion and his heart is helping musicians go through rough times. And if you are going through an injury right now, he literally is an amazing advocate for you. And I don't say this often, and I know my 360 listeners will know this, like reach out to him, email him, call him, write him, because he is so approachable. He is very warm and kind and knowledgeable. And to not reach out to somebody like Austin, especially when you're going through a rough patch in your life, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. So, friendly, loving advice is to reach out to people like Austin. And I just think you're amazing.
Oh my gosh, Heidi, you're making me blush like so much. If you're just listening on the audio, you can't see my tomato red face right now, but thank you for those kind words. And, I really am here to like help you in any way I can. So one of my values that resonates with my mission to help musicians change lives is to provide a safe place for people. So, my job is to really just be there and be that space for you. So if you feel comfortable reaching out, I know it can be such a uncomfortable thing, especially with pain, because it's such a spicy word in the musician space, and it's very misunderstood. But know that I understand you. Know that I'm here. I went through the same things, and I don't want you to go through the same things anymore. And that's literally why I'm here. So if you feel urged, if you resonate with any of the things that Heidi and I talked about, like, please reach out to me, and I'll totally make that time and space for you.
Awesome. And what is your website's URL?
Yep, you can find me at thefunctionalmusician.com.
Awesome.
And yeah,
Cool. So I know we've talked a lot about health and wellness, but before I end this lovely conversation, do you have any last sentiments that you would like to offer?
if I could give one piece of advice, it'd just be go take action, because again, preventative health is a lifelong journey. If you don't use it, you lose it. And just to throw, from a preventative standpoint, I mostly deal with musicians who are going through an injury. But on the other hand, we still want to have a holistic approach to our preventative health as well. And I have something called the 4 pillars. The first pillar is environment, and that's something in there called the health and wellness triangle, which is nutrition, hydration, and sleep. It's your practice habits, it's your practice breaks. And then we have pillar number 2. It's all about body awareness. And this is what the musician health and wellness industry is really great at, because you have Feldenkrais, Alexander technique, yoga, mobility. These are all great tools to develop body awareness, just being able to recognize how your body's organized, being able to recognize what the signs your body is telling you, not just oh, my body has tension. Well, tension is just one descriptor word. Is it dull? Is it achy? Is it painful? Is it fatigued? Is it sharp pain? Is it burning pain? Is it a muscle activation, because muscles are designed to activate? Or is it a muscle relaxation, because muscles are also designed to relax? And those are always all of those words and descriptors fall under the term tension. So just being able to recognize what that actually means. And then you have pillar number 3, which is being able to actually organize your body. So this also falls under the umbrella of being able to play your instrument in an organized fashion. So your posture while you play, as well as your posture throughout your day. How are you sitting right now? And sometimes our body does adapt to our poor ways of organizing. And you could have rounded shoulders, you could have upper crust syndrome, lower crust syndrome, different postural adaptations that have happened from prolonged misalignment in your body. And in that case, strength training is going to come into effect. So strength training isn't always bad if the tool is used for specific reasons. So that's pillar number 3. And then pillar number 4 is your mindset and mindfulness. This is something we can definitely talk about in another conversation, Heidi, because I know you and I are we geek about this stuff, but it doesn't matter how much injury prevention you do if your mind is not supporting your growth, if it's not supporting your career, if it's not going to support you through the really, really tough times, that is ultimately going to hold you back more than, let's say, experiencing pain would. So doing something like developing a meditation practice, a journaling practice, maybe a daily walk, something that gets you really connected to your mind and starts developing awareness about the emotions you're experiencing, and also tools to cope with disappointments and rejection. Because as musicians in our industry, it's just with auditions, you're going to be told no more than yes. All the way from middle school, trying out for All-State Band, you're being told no. So it's something that if you can have a mindset and just being able to look at the positives and look at gratitude and look at those opportunities of failure for opportunities of growth, then that's actually going to help you be more sustainable in whatever process or whatever career performing path you do decide to take. So if there's a particular pillar that resonated with you, go and learn about that pillar. Just go and do it. You don't have to do it all at once. Again, this is a lifelong journey, but just recognizing that, learning takes place from you, from action. Go out and do the thing. We believe in you.
I love that. The 4 pillars are amazing, and I'm such a visual person, so that really helps ground me and taking in that information.
Well, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad that was helpful.
Yeah. And I will say, y'all, that Austin literally, with that 4th pillar, the mind aspect, he's been such a great friend and coach in the masterminds to me. He's like, I challenge you. I challenge you. And I often find myself saying that word now in my own life. And so I want to just put a shout out to you, Austin, for being a coach to me in the mastermind. And he has given me so many amazing different journal prompts. And so when you said the mind element, and tools to help you get through those hurdles, I was thinking instantly of those journal prompts that you have given me in the past.
Yeah, totally. And I'm so glad they were helpful. And I do use the phrase, I challenge you. I do use that a lot. And it's just funny because, as an educator and a teacher, we can't force anybody to do anything. So by challenging someone, it kind of puts the accountability on them, and recognizing that it's also really, really difficult and something that's actually really inspiring. I know we haven't really talked about the mastermind thing, but Heidi and I are part of a mastermind together. And what's really, really cool is that we all challenge each other. And, doing these types of things is really uncomfortable, and being vulnerable with other people is uncomfortable, but it's so worth it from a growth aspect. And, I find that as a business owner, and a musician, my growth is directly related to my personal level of growth. And I can't have one without the other. So it's
Mm.
just amazing to see how both of those things go together. And from watching you as a business owner and a flautist,
Yeah,
a
flutist.
performer, seeing both of those things live really, really symbiotically together, and those both growing with the level of impact and personal growth that we're both going through.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Very cool. So, in the very last segment of the show, I do a fun segment called picks. Do you have a pick for the listener today?
Yeah. So this is going to be a non-musical pick. Is that okay?
Oh, I love non-music
Okay.
picks.
Yes. So I just got done off of like a week-long vacation, and I love Outer Banks Netflix series. They just came out with season 2. I would highly, highly recommend you check it out. They're like, I think it's like 10 to 12 episodes a season, and they're all basically an hour long. But it's one of those where you start, and it's like by episode 2, you're just like, oh no, oh no, it's happening. Oh no, I gotta cancel all my stuff for the next 3 days. Like, like back when there was that chess one. What was it? The Queen's Gambit. Like
I
after that
love
first episode, I was just like, oh,
hooked.
thank goodness this is a limited series, because bye bye productivity.
Right?
Yeah. So if you're feeling Netflix binge worthy time,
Mhm.
highly, highly recommend that. Outer Banks.
Oh, I needed that because I'm actually needing a show recommendation because I'm finding myself rewatching Netflix shows. And they're cool. That's great. I like to rewatch, but I needed something fresh. So I appreciate this recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you'll like it a lot. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
cool. And my pick today is a couple things. One, I'm going to piggyback off of this Netflix pick that Austin just gave. Since I am rewatching things, my Netflix pick is actually The Walking Dead.
Nice.
Which is so unlike me. If anyone's hearing this right now, they're just like, "Are you serious? Really?" Because I'm not into gore or zombies or things like that. I'm just not. It's not in my nature. But The Walking Dead is phenomenal. It's mainly because of the characters and the plot. It's just orchestrated very well. Have you seen Walking Dead?
I have not.
I
I have
think you
not.
would like it.
I think I would too. That's definitely always been one of those shows that I've been curious about. I just never have started.
Oh, start it. Seasons 1 through 9 are phenomenal. They did season 10 kind of in the midst of the pandemic. It's not their best, and I'll give it to them like, okay, I'll throw you a bone. You're shooting it in the middle of a pandemic, but seasons 1 through 9 are beautifully done. Season 10 is not my favorite. But
Yeah.
oh, Rick Rhymes and Daryl, and it's all good.
Cool. I'll definitely check that out.
Oh, shoot. And my second pick today is our mutual friend and her podcast, Mindy Peterson. Her show is called Enhance Life with Music. And Austin was actually a guest on her show not too long ago. And it's episode 79. I love Mindy and her mission of the show. And if you are into needing a new podcast and some fresh, valuable content, check out her Enhance Life with Music podcast. It's a podcast that takes a holistic look at the power of music in our everyday lives. That was a great episode, by the way, Austin.
Yeah, she's a great host. I loved that conversation, and as I like reflect back, that conversation just went by so fast. It was like 45 minutes to an hour, but
Yeah.
it was so easy, and I just blinked and it was gone. So
Yeah.
definitely worth checking out for sure.
Yeah. And she's a beautiful pianist, too. So, yeah, awesome. Well, you're amazing. Your content is amazing. I am so stoked to see the successes that you have achieved thus far, and I cannot wait to see your business continue to grow.
No, Heidi, you're amazing. Like, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to see how your business continues to develop and grow over the next coming years. And again, if anybody has any questions, like feel free to reach out to us. I know Heidi has helped people with podcasts and develop those, and it's definitely been on my radar as I've been, toying with the idea of starting a podcast as well. And when that happens, you'll be the first one I call.
I better
But
be
I
the first person you call.
Yeah, calling me out. I love it.
Oh, shoot. No,
Yeah.
yes, I would love to be that support for you, and it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And, thank you so much again for having me on this podcast. I hope, if you're listening, you found some type of value from this conversation. Just as a reminder, like, please go take action, go do the thing. You have more power than you think. You can do this. And if you have any questions, like, I am here as a resource for you.
Amazing. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you, Heidi.
The School of Music at Texas Tech University prepares professional musicians, educators, and industry leaders to take control of their futures. The people, the program, and the power of a top-tier university differentiate our TTU School of Music students. We ensure that TTU faculty, students, and alumni have 3 keys. They engage successfully as scholars and performers. They continue to expand their career for years to come with bold strategy and experience. And they serve impeccably as leaders who understand the process, the peak performance skills, and people value that makes TTU's School of Music and Lubbock, Texas, a destination of choice. People are at the heart of our institution. This commitment ensures that each student experiences major ensembles, band, choir, jazz, orchestra, and opera, chamber music, stellar academics, as well as individual attention in private lessons. The vernacular music program with tango orchestra, mariachi band, Baltic and Celtic ensembles, medieval band, and research forums differentiates the TTU program by being an offer for both undergraduate and graduate students. Performance facilities include the 541-seat Hemley Recital Hall, which houses an 84-rank Holtkamp organ consisting of 4,469 pipes. Home to the largest instrument collection in West Texas, the School of Music provides Fazioli and Steinway concert grand pianos, a Kingston French double harpsichord, a Martin harpsichord, and we are fortunate to have a 36-bell carillon. The School of Music is an accredited member of the National Association of Schools of Music and offers bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees in music and music education.
Let's talk about flute.